Sunday morning at 11 a.m. Who could we possibly get in here on a Sunday morning at 11 a.m. at the Voice of College Football when we typically hit you up late night? So at different times of the day, it's interesting to see who pops up and who we could possibly bring in for a conversation on college football. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Voice of College Football on a Sunday. National Championship game eve, Georgia, Alabama. Appreciate everybody being here, and certainly leave your comments and questions in the live chat. I had mentioned a couple of days ago that I wanted to go live each and every day leading into the national championship game. What we have in store for you on Monday, we're going to go live at noon Eastern time on Monday, and we're going to take it all the way up to game time, up until kickoff with you here at the Voice of College Football. So if we don't get the national championship showdown covered on Monday in the span of 8 hours, then I don't know what happened this morning to me was that I got to bed. I tried to sleep. This is typical. I tried to sleep. I went to bed late, as I typically do. I might have gone to bed around 3:15, something in that range. Maybe later than that. No, about 3 or 3:15. Could not sleep at all. Finally got to sleep. And but I had to get up at 9 a.m. to pick up my daughter for church. And I should know wintertime in Connecticut. Check. I didn't. Jumped out of bed, exhausted, jumped in the shower, got ready, and jumped in the car, and I started driving, and it was raining ice. It was freezing rain. And I thought, uh-oh. So I contacted my daughter, and sure enough, she had already contacted me 45 or 50 minutes earlier to tell me that church was canceled. So here I am up. And so here we are. This has led to our college football live stream. The default from church is college football talk. So appreciate everybody being here. I'll take your comments and questions. I don't believe we're going to fire up the phone lines today unless we get some overwhelming response. We shall see how many people gather. I appreciate everybody that on a regular basis jumps on here at the spur of the moment. This was not scheduled, but tomorrow will be scheduled Monday at noon Eastern for 8 hours leading into the national championship game. All right. We had a ton of commits yesterday at the All-American game, and we will run those down. Yakov is here. Yakov 22. Mark, what is your typical Sunday breakfast? My typical Sunday breakfast, considering that if I go to church, which has been my way of life since I was a little kid, so I would say that I'm a little more sporadic in my adult life, unfortunately, because if I've got nobody to go with me, then I get lazy. And you guys know how late I stay up. So, but church on Sunday morning means that I get up, get ready, go. So there is no breakfast. No breakfast on Sunday. The breakfast of champions for the last 3 or 4 days has been a flat out, straight out bacon and eggs. I go through phases. So I'm trying to be healthy. I have not had any, what I would like to say, I'm fasting from sugar, but I'm not fasting from sugar, but there's been a huge reduction in my sugar intake because I'm not hoarding and becoming completely stuffed and gluttonous on donuts, cookies, ice cream. None of that since New Year's Eve. That was the last time I touched a cookie or ice cream, New Year's Eve. So that's been a good 10 days. Good for me. So for breakfast, my breakfast, I go in swings. I swing from cereal and a banana to oatmeal to now for the past few days, I've just wanted to get some protein. So bacon and eggs. Nothing today though. So I woke up at 9 and headed on out and got the news. And so I came on back and decided to do a live stream. But I did have an apple and I've got my vitamin water, which I desperately need right now. Alan has already hit the thumbs up and already liked. That's what you got to do right there. That's what it is. Appreciate that. So for those of you who don't necessarily understand this, and I'm probably talking to the wrong people, hitting the like button doesn't massage my ego. Probably does certain other people. I don't know. But it's just a YouTube thing. It is a YouTube algorithm that they test. Basically, they figure if 1,000 people watch a video and 500 people like it, then it must be really good. And if 1,000 people watch it and 10 people like it, it must suck, and they are apathetic toward that content. So please always hit the like button. David's here. Good to see David. David doesn't get to join us as much. He is busy and doesn't sleep like me. Big Red Pyro. It is a huge NFL day. Huge NFL day. And if I had two of me, you better believe I'd have an NFL channel. The NFL has turned me off to a certain degree, but man, I could watch the NFL. I love NFL history. I know more about NFL history than I do college football history, which would surprise some people. Harry hates the NFL, but huge day in the NFL. We had, I had one of those deals yesterday where I was on the couch and in front of the TV for most of the two games, but I wasn't locked in. I had too much work to do. So working on all sorts of issues and problems and situations and things that had to be cleaned up. And so I was doing that, but I got to have something in front of me. So Cowboys, Eagles, Dallas won big. Philadelphia's, I didn't know this when I turned the game on because I was wondering why Philly was playing all of its backups. One college football note, Devontae Smith, one of the greatest players in the history of college football, broke the Philadelphia Eagles rookie receiving record. And then they took him out of the game. And so that alerted me to, oh, they are not playing their starters. And I saw Gardner Minshew, former Washington State quarterback, because I connect this to college football, was starting for Philadelphia. And I looked at their record and I said, 9-7. It's kind of on the cutting line of NFL playoff contention. And obviously 16 games played has always been, since 1978, the full season, but they've added a 17th game, which is stupid. Here we are in the second week of January, and we're still playing NFL regular season games. 40 to 50 years ago, this would have been Super Bowl week. The Super Bowl was played around the 10th to 15th of January for probably the first 20 years of the game. But we went from a 14-game season with 5 playoff teams per conference to 16 games in 1978 and expanded the playoffs. Then we expanded the playoffs again in 1990. Now here we are in 2021, even though the league has not expanded with more teams. And so now you've got a Philadelphia team that lost its 8th game and is now 9-8 going to the playoffs. So Philadelphia had already wrapped up the final playoff spot, which is kind of odd for a 9-7 team. That's why they sat everyone out. And I'm sure I'm losing folks here on my NFL talk. A buddy of mine and I started an NFL history channel, of which we've posted about 5 videos, and we did that last fall, but unfortunately, we just don't have time to continue it. That would be something I would love to do in the future. Robert's here. Appreciate you being here, Robert. I had a conversation with a buddy the other day, Big Red Pyro, about NFL wagering versus college football, because his initial thought, my buddy, he's more of an NFL guy than a college football guy, but he's a big Ohio State fan, but more of an NFL fan, Cleveland Browns fan, but watches all NFL, Ohio State more than typically keeping track of everything in college football. And he just assumed that it's easier to bet on college games because there's such talent disparity. But I told him, I said, I don't think so. In my record, I predicted NFL games from, I'll date myself, 1979. Yes, I was 10 years old, predicting NFL games. Just something at a very young age intrigued me about predicting the games and watching Jimmy the Greek. Hope everyone knows who that is. Some folks under 40 probably have no idea who Jimmy the Greek was. So Jimmy the Greek, watching him on CBS and his little check marks, he would check mark the special teams, the offense, rushing, passing, defense. He would have his little check board, and I used to watch him. Then I would kind of track in my mind how accurate he was, and I thought, this guy he's not really that accurate. And this is at 10 years old. So anyway, and before that, so at 10 years old, the 1979 NFL season, this is how my mind works. And this is probably not a good thing, that I still remember my prediction record from when I was 10 years old in 1979, predicting NFL games, that I was 153-71. 224 NFL games. There was always 224, 16 teams, 16 games. At the time, 28 teams, 224 games. I was 153-71. And I didn't even think about picking against the spread at that point. But, and then I started predicting college games in 1982 and kept my record. Always kept my record. And my dad and I had a running contest. We would pick all the NFL and college games. That's what we would do on Friday afternoon. We would go through all the NFL and college games and read off my prediction sheet, and he would make his picks. I would make my picks, and then we would see who did better. That was our Friday thing. But I was in talking to my buddy the other day, he just assumed that it was easier to pick college games because Alabama's playing Vanderbilt. And he knows about lines and odds as well as I do. He just figured that it's still easier despite the huge point spreads. And I said, I don't think it is. And my NFL record once I started to predict the games against the spread, probably 10 plus years ago, something in that range, that it was easier for me. I had a better record in the NFL because basically the point spreads are so tight that you're determining who's going to win the game. That is much more important in NFL predictions. Who's going to win the game? Because 80% of the time, I got to think, you have just predicted who's going to beat the spread because the spreads are 3, 2.5, 4.5, 1. Where in college football, the issue I have is when Alabama's a 41-point favorite against Vanderbilt, I know that Alabama's going to kill Vandy. That's not the question. The question is, what's going to be going on in the fourth quarter or the second half? Is Alabama going to pull its first and second team? Does it really matter? Their third team's better than Vanderbilt, too. And those guys actually might be motivated. How are they going to call the game? Is Nick Saban just going to run the ball up the middle and run out the clock? Or are they going to continue to work on the passing game? So who's going to be in the game? We have no idea. Who's going to be motivated? We have no idea. And how are the coaches going to call the game at that point? Too many variables. So that's why when I've tracked my prediction record against the spread, I am so much more accurate. I am so much more accurate in games of less than 3 touchdowns. About 20 points and less, I'm much more accurate because it's generally going to be a competitive game. Start to finish. The man here asks, Mark, do you remember the 1976 Pitt Panthers? Yes, national championship team with Tony Dorsett. Of course, they beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl 27-3. Do I personally remember watching them? No. So in the 1975 college football season, I remember nothing. The 1976 season, I don't know what triggered interest because I had no one around me, no one in my household, no friends, nothing to turn me on to college football or really the NFL. My first memory of the NFL was Thanksgiving 1977. And we were having Thanksgiving at a friend's house. And the father of our friends, he said, we're watching the NFL games. And O.J. Simpson's on the screen, the Buffalo Bills, I think against Detroit. That would have been the game, of course. Detroit, Dallas always play on Thanksgiving. And I just remember I'm sitting there watching just because everybody else is watching. I don't know what's going on. I still remember when I was in second or third grade playing football at recess and having no idea what anyone was doing. I had no clue. I had no idea. I'd get into a huddle and they'd say blitz. I didn't know what that meant. Anyway, watching this game, and our friend said to me, Mark, that guy is the best football player on the planet. And it was O.J. Simpson. And the way I typically respond to things is that if I like something, I go full bore, full throttle. I don't just kind of like it. No, I love it. Either love it or I don't like it. And so with football, I went from 0 to I'm reading everything. I'm discovering everything I possibly can about it. I'm memorizing statistics. I'm buying football magazines at the grocery store. I'm watching everything imaginable. So I went from 0 in 1976 to 100% full throttle maniac obsessed in 1978. So the 77 NFL season, I've got a pretty good handle on. I've got a really good handle on. And I could run through memories if people cared about the NFL that are watching me. I'm sure some of you do. I bet it's about 50-50 split. But in terms of college football, okay, 76, Pitt Panthers, no. The first memory I have of college football, and this is kind of odd that this would be my first memory because it would point to me having some level of fandom and fervency, but I don't remember anything before this. 1978, 1976, watching Bo Schembechler be carried off the field at Ohio Stadium after Michigan blanked Ohio State 22-0, and I was just angry, throwing my fist at the screen. My fist came about an inch from the TV screen. I was so angry And I saw that face, and I learned to hate that Bo Schembechler face for the next 12 or 13 years. But for me to be that angry over a conclusion to that game, but I don't remember anything before that game. So then the 77 season, in terms of college football, I do remember watching bowl games in 77. I remember watching the Ohio State-Michigan game and other Ohio State games and bowl games. And then 1978 is when I really knew what was going on nationally and watched everything I possibly could, which at that point, I don't remember for sure, but I'm sure that there was a noon game on nationally and then a game right after. There was a double header, and that was pretty much it. We were one of the fortunate ones that had ESPN from the beginning. And that's not because anybody in my household wanted ESPN or knew what it was. My mom could care less about sports. My brother could care less about sports. My sister had a mild interest in sports. So nobody cared about, I had no influence in terms of sports in my house. My dad, once I got into it, he got into it just to have something. And then once I started to get interested in watching it, I got interested in playing it. So then I started playing it all the time. I started playing a ton of football and baseball outside. And I just went full throttle there too. I could play football all the time. I could play baseball all the time. And baseball, that became an obsession too, almost exactly at the same time. The 1978 baseball season, I went from 1977, 0, 1978. I had everybody's statistics memorized, I had everybody's rosters memorized. The amount of baseball statistical knowledge that has left this brain, there's still quite a bit that resides there, but it's nothing close to what has left my brain in the last few years. All right, you guys don't want to hear about that. Alan, Casey Thompson for Nebraska, what are your thoughts? My thought is that that's a tremendous pickup. We did a live stream with Zach Reeder as soon as that news broke on the Nebraska channel. Check out our conversation right there. Casey Thompson led the Big 12 in touchdown passes. I believe he is an upgrade over Adrian Martinez. Not substantially. Not that they're not comparable players or that they're different style players, but in terms of effectiveness, I don't think there's a huge difference, but I do think Thompson is better than Martinez. He's healthier, that's for sure. He is not the runner that Adrian Martinez is, but he has greater passing skill and talent. Even with his lack of experience, better passing skill and certainly more passing talent than Adrian Martinez. Casey Thompson is a near elite talent. I'm not going to put him in that category of elite quarterback, but he was arguably the best quarterback in the conference in the Big 12 this past season. 24 touchdowns, 9 picks. I first saw him against Colorado in the Alamo Bowl the previous season. Sam Ehlinger left the game. Texas crushed Colorado. Casey Thompson came in. And if you go back and watch the 10 passes that he threw in that game, you would think that he was ready for Sunday. It's a small sample size, but he was doing things that you only see a handful of quarterbacks do in college football. Anticipating throws, anticipating windows, breaks, reading defenses, throwing at different arm slots, arm angles. It was an impressive showing for 8 of 10, 3 touchdowns or whatever it was. It was something like that. So he got some valuable playing time with 6 touchdown passes and no picks in 2020. He lost the quarterback battle to Hudson Card entering 2021. Card won the job, beat Louisiana, then was getting tossed around like a rag doll against Arkansas. They inserted Casey Thompson, who then basically was the starter for the rest of the year, and had a huge game against Oklahoma. 5 touchdown passes, 388 yards. He had a nice season. and he did not have the best of situations around him. He will, despite the Nebraska offensive line issues, he will probably be playing behind a better offensive line at Nebraska than he did behind at Texas. Lewis is on Twitter. You should follow him there, or you should just check out his page. I'm not going to direct you whom to follow and whom not to follow. I shouldn't do that. But in terms of who I follow on Twitter, I'll put it this way. This hits me from time to time. I should follow all the big college football writers out there that break news. That's who I should follow. But basically, I follow people that I personally know, which is only probably 20 or 25, 30 people, maybe more than that, on Twitter. And then I just follow people that, if somebody follows me and they appear to be a reputable media person, then I will follow them back. But I just don't follow anyone. So if you're desperately wanting me to follow you for some reason, I will follow you. But I usually look at the value of the account. And that's no offense to anybody that's following me, but I want to have as clean a Twitter feed as possible of just information. I would like it to be somewhat entertaining too, but we got Road Wolf here. Yeah, let's go Canes. So Road Wolf, you got to be happy about Cyrus Moss. So one programming note is that this afternoon I'm going to run through all the various players who committed yesterday. It's a long list of players to Miami, Texas, Ohio State, and elsewhere, Ole Miss, and be posting our player profiles on those team-specific channels. So I think a lot of people watch us here at the Voice of College Football on the main channel and are not aware that we've got team channels. So I try to keep this channel clear to deliver national analysis. That's the goal. It doesn't always stay that way because I'd like to deliver at least one post per day. So if I don't have anything from a national press perspective or didn't have time to break anything down nationally, then I'll post the more popular teams here. And of course, we've got a national championship game. So you're going to see a lot of Georgia, Alabama. If you do not have enough Georgia, Alabama analysis here, I don't know what to tell you, because we've probably delivered 10 hours of Alabama and Georgia analysis. So it's right here from both perspectives, Alabama, Georgia, and another 8 hours tomorrow. Not that I'm going to talk about Alabama and Georgia for 8 hours. Don't think that's possible. String Gene says that the NFL is registered as entertainment, so they can legally rig the games any way they want. The NFL is wrestling. You know what? If that was uncovered and it became known fact, I wouldn't be shocked. I don't believe that to be true any more than college football is. Just to show us how much society has changed and media and not necessarily ethics, but just kind of a moral high ground. The separation that the NFL used to take with gambling was obvious. They wanted no part, didn't want it mentioned, nothing. And now they promote it. Now they promote it because they know that certain people's interest in the NFL only has to do with gambling, which I never understood. Why get involved in something that otherwise you don't have any interest in? I've had people that I know, let's say during bowl season, say, yeah, I decided to play this bowl pool just to keep me interested in watching college football, just to have something to do. My goodness, I've got plenty to do. I don't need to make up things to do. And I also don't take part in gambling just to be interested in something. Like if the World Cup rolls around, I hate the World Cup. I could care less about the World Cup. I've never watched more than 4 seconds of the World Cup. So I certainly would not take part in a gambling pool or some type of wagering just to get interested in something that I don't like. Sugar is poison. Yes. So we're trying to rid our system of that. Brian's here. Go Big Red. GBR. Got quite a Nebraska contingent here. So we hope that you are subscribed to our Nebraska channel and know that we're there every Tuesday night live at 7 o'clock Eastern Time with Greg Peterson from Husker Online and bring you Nebraska football talk, which that's going to be another player profile I'm going to present today as Trey Palmer, the former LSU receiver, signed at Nebraska and should be a pretty good addition. He caught 30 passes last year. One Scoop John, he's here. Mike 3883, good to see you as well. Ian, talking about Tanner McCalister, the new Ohio State defensive back. Exciting. What are your thoughts on his potential impact? So again, I'm going to point you to better analysis with myself and Tony Gerderman and Steve Hellwagon on the Ohio State channel. We talked about it a ton. I got to think that he's a starter from day one. He played for a legit best defense in the Big 12 and a legit top 10 defense in the country. Not talking about statistically. I'm talking about actuality on the field. Best defenses in the country. Georgia, Alabama, Wisconsin, Penn State when healthy, Michigan, Clemson for sure, Oklahoma State right in that conversation. Tanner McCalister racked up like 42 tackles last year, has played a wealth of games at safety, came to Oklahoma State as a corner, switched to safety after 5 or 6 games, played 30, 32 starts at Oklahoma State. It's a tremendous get for the Buckeyes. Absolutely. But for more in-depth analysis, head on over to the Ohio State channel. We've got plenty of videos on Tanner McCalister. Yakov 22. I love hearing these kind of stories. First college football game, somewhat remember. Georgia, Notre Dame, 1981 Sugar Bowl, of course. Yes, Georgia won 17-10 to win the national championship. Watched with my grandparents. I recall my grandmother connecting that Herschel Walker was incredible, or commenting. Yes. Yeah, I do remember that game. That's when that might have been one of the first games where I started to question the bowl system. So I'm 12 years old. I'm watching the Sugar Bowl. Georgia's 11-0. They're number 1 in the country. Notre Dame is 9-1-1, and they're like number 7. Why are they playing? We're trying to figure out if Georgia is truly the best team in the country. Can we not find somebody else for them to play? Brian, biscuits and gravy. So my eating style, okay, if I just ate what I liked, had no thought about health. In terms of main courses, I love pizza, wings, steak. Went to get a steak with my son a couple weeks ago. Hadn't had a steak in a while. My favorite dish that probably nobody has heard of here is Marzetti. I love just about any Italian dish, spaghetti, lasagna, rigatoni, all sorts of Italian dishes. A good meatloaf. So I'm very much an American meat and potatoes, and I know I mentioned a ton of Italian, but Americanized type food. I have only recently, in the last few years, started to gain a better appreciation of, let's say, Mexican, um, and open up my palate. And then my son, 25 years old, is fighting the same habit I have about sugar. And I've got to thank God, but it's also been a curse that basically I've never gained any weight. Now that I'm in my 50s, I've started to gain some weight, not much, but enough for it to look bad. And, but I could eat anything. Like, I'm not talking about eating 3 cookies and liking sugar and got to have some cookies and eating 3 cookies. No, I'm talking about eating like 25 or 30 cookies every time, eating cookies every day. Ice cream, eating 2 bowls of ice cream, large bowls of ice cream. So I've always loved, and my dad encouraged it. Not that he was asking me to eat, but he encouraged it by what he purchased. And so I grew up with it. And yes, it's been and I never felt bad. That's the thing. I didn't gain weight, didn't feel bad, didn't have any health considerations from it. I would always go get my health checked, and my sugar levels were in check, my glucose, my cholesterol, all that. No impact on it. Doctors would always tell me, even to this day, my doctor would tell me, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'd be like, well, you can't imagine what I eat. It's horrible. He's like, I don't know what to tell you because it's not showing up, not hurting you. He's like, no, you shouldn't be eating like that, but it's not hurting you. I've always exercised. Um, this winter has been a struggle, and I've really slacked off in the last year, I would say. But for the rest of my life, always exercise. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do dope, never have. Not that I haven't had a few drinks here and there, but I mean, I don't drink. So that helps. Uh, there's Marty. Marty, go blue. Good morning, Mark. Press the like button, folks. Subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell. Yes. So when you hit the bell, you get the notifications for when we go live. Thank you, Marty. Appreciate that. Appreciate any contributions anyone has. So you can see down on the ticker down at the bottom of the screen, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. If that's the ticker I put up there, I believe I did. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are really the best ways for you to contribute. You can certainly hit up the super chat here on YouTube. But if you would like to bypass YouTube, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App, just search Mark Rogers TV. Also, we're on Patreon. And I know since the football season started, the reason people have joined Patreon is to get my predictions and to get the predictions of our media guests that you see here on a regular basis. Guys like Steve Hellwagon, Kevin Noon, Tody Gerdeman, Steve Dace, the Wholesome One, and on and on and on and on. Now that we don't have any more games, why should you join Patreon? Well, for many of you, you simply say, and I appreciate this beyond what you can imagine. You tell me, Mark, we don't care if you deliver anything on Patreon. Just this is a donation. This is a contribution for everything that you do on YouTube. So for those people, I appreciate it. But I do not expect in any such way to build a following on Patreon by just depending on people that are just kind in donating. So I am attempting to educate myself on a Discord to provide that. to have a Discord on Patreon. People love them. We build a community there where we could constantly be in contact and talking about college football and building a community there on Discord that's more of a real-time communication platform. So if you're not familiar with Discord, the only reason I'm familiar with Discord is because of Logan Robinson on our Florida State show talking about their Discord every week and explaining it to me. And so I know what Discord is, and we're going to add that, God willing, to our Patreon here as soon as I get the time to embark on that. And if you have any other suggestions for Patreon, also understand if you join us on Patreon that we will deliver one exclusive live stream per week per request. Key note there at the end, per request, because I used to deliver one exclusive live stream every week and it didn't turn out to be effective or beneficial to anyone. Per request. All right. One Scoop John. Yeah, Herbstreit and Fowler on the NFL game. That actually made me listen more to the game. They have done NFL games in the past. They started doing NFL games, I would guess, like 2 years ago. I think they started to add them to the NFL Monday night doubleheader in week 1. So the ESPN, for I would say at least the last 10 years, has done a doubleheader on Monday Night Football on opening weekend, and they started to add Fowler and Herbstreit a few years ago. And then I know that they popped up on a few NFL games here and there. Again, when they had additional games. So I thought that was fun to listen to them break down an NFL game, and I think they enjoy it to just do something different, be challenged by something different. They have to watch different personnel and prepare for the game differently. Marine 76 is here. Appreciate you being here. String Gene is letting us know as of today, the recruiting rankings for 2022 stand as Texas A&M number 1, Georgia 2, Bama 3, Ohio State 4, and Clemson at number 36. 36. I think that should be 5. 36. We talk a lot of Clemson football over on our Clemson channel. Please subscribe over there as well. Texas A&M, my goodness, their class has been so good that they were the number 1 recruiting class on National Signing Day. And since then, I believe they've signed 3, if not 4, top 5 players at their positions on top of the number 1 recruiting class. They had the number 1. Kirby's visor. Kirby's visor, you've got to be pumped, like crazy pumped. You've got a national championship to win in 33 hours. Dewey, hopefully you were here. I gave my take on Trey Palmer a few minutes ago, but if not, we're going to produce a profile. And then, of course, Greg Peterson from Husker Online will be with us on a Tuesday night to talk about it. So we will have plenty on Trey Palmer in addition to what I stated a few minutes ago. Marine 76, you are correct. I hate the 17th game. You hate the 17th game. I'll tell you for 2 reasons. 3 reasons. One is 16 games not sufficient to determine who the best teams are and who should make the playoffs? Like if they played a 6-game season, I would say, well, that's not enough games to determine who the best teams are to play in the play. But once we get to 16, number 2, they're extending the season too long. More football is typically better. I am always an advocate of more football. However, I do think that there is a season for each sport. The NBA should not be playing in June. June is not basketball's time. Baseball should not be playing in November. It's too long. So the NFL season should be concluded at the end of January. Should not be playing football into February. Starting the season really at the end of August, first week of September into February. So, and then number 3, 17 is just a bad number. It's just an awkward, odd number. People, you think of a schedule being it's just an odd number. I don't know how else to put it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing morally wrong with it. It's just odd. 17 games for an NFL season. They played 12 until I believe 1965. Then they went to 14. Then 1978, 16. So they've been for almost 50 years, 45 years, 44. They've been at 16 games, 17. Why 17? You know why? Money. They can make more money. They negotiated with the players, and the players said, oh, you want us to play a 17th game? Well, what's going to happen is that we'll play a 17th game, and you're going to give us a larger cut of the pie. I guarantee, without even following the NFL negotiations or the CBA. Yakov 22. Mark, have you ever attended a Super Bowl? I have not. I have not had the opportunity. I've not pursued it. It somewhat interests me. It's not any kind of bucket list item, but it somewhat interests me. I don't like to I'm not big on attending sporting events, especially football. I love going to baseball games. My attachment to baseball has dwindled to almost nothing. I still believe it to be the most beautiful sport. And I could still today, anytime during the baseball season, channel surf and see a baseball game and sit there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and just not know who's playing, if they're any good. And when I say I don't know who's playing, if it says Marlins Mets, I know who they are, but not knowing the players, how the Marlins and the Mets are doing. This is what I was talking about at the opening of the show. I'm hot and cold. My personality's not hot and cold. I'm very stable, but I'm very hot and cold in terms of what I like. So baseball from 1978 until a couple of years ago, I was so locked into baseball that it was hard for me to go to bed knowing that there was still a baseball game being played somewhere in the United States, meaning the Padres and the Giants were in the 8th inning and it was 3-1. And I really didn't want to go to bed until I knew who won the game and preferably was watching it. I ordered the extra innings Major League Baseball package every year. That was one of my most favorite possessions, is to have the Major League Baseball extra innings package. And I got it for the last time about 3 years ago. But I've never attended a Super Bowl. I've been to games in all three sports, NFL, Major League Baseball, and the NBA. Major League Baseball, the most by far, probably 150. A few NBA games. I've probably only been to maybe 15 NBA games. NFL games. The only NFL games I've ever attended was when I was interning at Channel 23 in Akron in 1990. They assigned me to 3 or 4 Browns games. And other than that, I can't think of any other NFL games I've been to. I'd much rather sit at home and watch games. I hate being at the stadium when I can't see what's going on. You have no replay. Well, in today's age, it's a little different. You got replays on the Jumbotron, and people have their phones depending on how good the Wi-Fi is. But I've only been to college football. I covered the SEC, so I was in a number of SEC stadiums and then bowl destinations there. But it seemed like they went to the same bowl games all the time, so I was going to Atlanta all the time. I've been to Atlanta to cover sporting events, I don't know how many times, to cover SEC championship games, SEC tournaments, Peach Bowls. Yeah, can you believe it? Doing a morning show. He must have actually slept for more than an hour last night. No, actually, I did not. Actually, I did not. It's the opposite. I just decided to stay up. Lewis, January 15th, 1967. That sounds like Super Bowl one. The date of Super Bowl one. And we were talking about statistics and remembering statistics. This is so pathetic that I remember the attendance of Super Bowl one. I hope I don't screw this up. 61,946. 61,946 at the LA Coliseum. Robert. Ian is here. What was a better championship game, the 0-2 Ohio State Miami game or the 0-5 Texas USC game? Well, I'm biased, so let's get that out of the way first and foremost. I am biased. I like to have an opinion on everything. I like to be decisive, especially when you guys are counting on me to answer questions. And usually I can point to one thing and say, okay, this is what makes that a better game. So the 0-2 championship game, you have the drama of overtime. Texas USC, you had the drama of a comeback. USC led by, it was more than a touchdown. I think it was 9. Was it 9? What was the final score of that game? It was Texas was down 5. Texas was down 5. So I think they won by 2. It's even difficult for me to try to rank the talent in each game. It's so comparable. The Ohio State talent is, I think, undervalued because they were so close to losing so many games that year that they weren't viewed as a dominant team. But the amount of NFL talent on that Ohio State team is probably underestimated by many people. We know that Miami was loaded with NFL talent. That was one of the more talented teams in the history of college football, and of course had a 34-game winning streak. So you have the drama of the underdog, the enormous underdog taking down a giant in the first game. but Miami, of course, was just loaded. Ohio State, by most standards, was loaded too. I believe every defensive starter for Ohio State played in the NFL. The offensive line was an NFL offensive line. Uh, the two receivers played in the NFL. Claret was a bust from a pro perspective, but he was certainly sought after by the NFL. And even though he left early and only played one season, Denver drafted him in the 5th round, or he was in the supplemental draft. Anyway, the Texas USC game definitely had better quarterback play and better quarterbacks. Vince Young, Matt Leinart, you're talking about two Heisman Trophy winners. Well, Vince Young did not win a Heisman Trophy. Probably should have. We'll have to do a video on that someday. So better quarterback play in Texas USC. But 0-2 Ohio State Miami is near and dear to my heart. But if I was being objective about it, that would be possibly be the deciding factor. And I usually don't decide things like that, but just the level of quarterback play in the second game being higher. Ken Dorsey did not have a good day. And much of that had to do with Ohio State, but I just don't think he had a good night anyway. Jeff, happy Natty Eve. I said the same thing off the top of the show. Roll Tide. String Gene is still all over the NFL. It's just me, Tim79. Good to see you. Marine 76, the downfall of Jimmy. Don't know where we are there. Felipe, good to see you. Yes, why not? Morning stream here. I explained why off the top of the show. I was driving to church. It was freezing rain. I had my daughter check, and yes, church was canceled. Gary, good to see you. Yakov 22. As a kid, I'd get goosebumps when NBC pregame football started with a montage of great games, great moments. I don't remember great games, great moments. I remember that they, with Bryant Gumbel as the host, Bryant Gumbel, not Greg, that they named their pregame show and their highlight show throughout the day, their update desk, NFL, and whatever the year was, NFL 78, NFL 79, NFL 80. I don't remember when they stopped that. I don't know. Dun, 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 dun. Are you with me, Yakov? Can you hear me? Dun, 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 dun. Oh, I screwed it up. You probably couldn't recognize that. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. And some of the broadcast teams back then, oh my, Don Crickey and John Brody, they were a team who also did the Orange Bowl every year. And of course, Dick Enberg and Merlin Olsen were phenomenal. They did the Rose Bowl for a long time. Kurt Gowdy had a number of different color analysts. Nobody in particular comes to mind as always being with him. Remember Vin Scully doing the NFL? Vin Scully called the famous NFC Championship game of 1981, Dwight Clark, the catch. One of the worst moments in the history of my life. But man, the broadcast teams back then, Charlie Jones and Len Dawson. Oh, my goodness. Oh, the broadcasting teams were phenomenal. Gary says, congrats to OSU for poaching awesome recruits and an offensive line coach from out west. Yes, they picked up a defensive lineman from California. Again, we will have a player profile on the Ohio State channel later. Felipe remembers the USC Texas game to this day. It was only in 2005, Felipe. That I understand that's starting to become a long time ago. That was 16 years ago. Still, yes, Jeff, the mid to late 70s CBS NFL Today pregame remains untopped. Musburger, Cross, George, Snyder. That was it. Brent, Irv, Phyllis, Jimmy the Greek. Phenomenal. And this is why YouTube is so great. This is why YouTube is so great. Felipe says the NFL on ABC had me almost. Please explain that one. String Gene, who will be in the Super Bowl has already been decided. Okay, still on that. We've got R.W. Tyndall. Cincinnati is still the best football team in the state of Ohio. Maybe. I think it's somewhat close. I would certainly take Ohio State to beat them. Gary, Mark, do you think Georgia will be able to run on Alabama tomorrow night? No. But they've got to try. They've got to stay with it. They've got to make it part of their game. That doesn't mean run on first and second down every series. That means don't abandon the run. Stetson Bennett, you do not want him throwing the ball. And this is not a knock on him. This is for most quarterbacks. Do not want him throwing the ball 45 or 50 times. You can take the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and when they had the support of a running game, they were better. Keep the defense guessing. So I think Georgia running the ball 60% of the time is the approach in the game plan. Run it 60% of the time. And if Georgia averages, let's throw out sacks. If they are able to average 3.5 yards per carry against Alabama, that would be good. Be fine. If between Cook and White and McIntosh, if he plays, they are able to go 30 carries for 100 yards. String Gene's first Falcons game, I assume that's the Atlanta Falcons, was in 1971. They were very young right then. They were in their 5th or 6th season. Tommy Nobis at linebacker from the University of Texas. Gary says, I vaguely remember seeing the 76 Pitt team, not in the Sugar Bowl. That team had a lot of future NFL players. Yes. Yeah, really just prior to Dan Marino, I remember somewhat, but the Dan Marino Pitt teams are the first ones that I watched on a somewhat weekly basis. It wasn't watching Pitt football every week, but you know what I mean? Keeping track of them and watching the big games. Bill Fralick, absolutely, 79. And, Pitt played in a ton of big games back then. 1980, I remember they were number 1 and they got blitzed by Penn State. So, you younger folks, Penn State was a tremendous rivalry. They were 2 top programs, and they played on the last weekend of the season. And if I remember the score correctly, 48-14 Penn State took down a number 1 Pitt team, head coached by Jackie Sherrill. That was in 1980. But Pitt, of course, took down Georgia and Herschel Walker and denied them the national championship in 1982 at the Sugar Bowl. The year before, 1980, they beat, it was a matchup between Hugh Green, who went on to NFL fame with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and George Rogers, of course, in the Gator Bowl. And Pitt won that game 37-9. Wasn't much of a game. Then in 1981, I'm blanking on their bowl game in 81, the 81 Sugar Bowl. Oh, no. Pitt and Marino beat Georgia in 81. Penn State and Todd Blackledge beat Georgia in 82. Yeah. Felipe likes Georgia to win Monday night. A lot of Street and Smiths for Marine 76. Absolutely. Felipe is bringing up the undefeated Marshall team with Chad Pennington and Randy Moss. Yes, Gary, that is the game that I'm referencing, the O.J. Simpson game at night at Detroit in the Silverdome. My dad took me to the Silverdome in 1978 through a blizzard. We drove all the way from Ohio. It was like a 5-hour drive because I loved Fran Tarkington. That is the first NFL game I've ever seen, and really the only NFL game I ever paid to see. Not that I paid, my dad did. The Vikings and the Lions. And even though Minnesota was a better team, they were just at the tail end of their Central Division dynasty, and they got clocked 45-14 in that game. They still won the division, still went to the playoffs, got blasted by the Raiders the next week, but went to the playoffs at 8-7-1. Fran Tarkington's last year. So I got to see Fran Tarkington's third to last game ever at the Silverdome. Oh, yeah. Howard on Monday Night Football. Absolutely. Mike, who was the good defensive end on the Pitt teams around 1979 or 80, I think you're talking about, yes, Hugh Green. Yes, Ray, glad you could be here for the live show. We're just talking football. Gary Lewis, the 1977 Michigan-Ohio State game. I think Les Miles played well. I'll have to look into that. Coach Jake is watching from San Diego. I believe, I'm going to guess that your weather is just a little bit better there than what we're experiencing here in beautiful Connecticut. It is gloomy and gray and overcast and about 22 degrees, I'm guessing. Yes, Yakov 22. I am aware that Pete Johnson and Archie Griffin were both on the 82 Bengals Super Bowl team. Yes. Yes. Archie Griffin fumbled a kickoff in that game. And Pete Johnson played relatively well. He played a lot. He was the starter. Ray, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for the kind compliment there. I'm a newer listener, watcher, and I appreciate your college football knowledge and insights. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate that. Jeff Webster. I was 10 during the 76 season. Remember, all year was called Tony Dorsett. Okay. Draft talk. Okay. This is kind of a controversial topic of sorts for the voice of college football because is that college football? So I used to do a ton of draft. So for a couple of years, For a couple years, I did the draft to this extent. I would have the draft on DVR. I'd start watching it, and after 15 picks, I would cut a video and analyze the first 15 picks. Then after the first round, boom, same thing. And I would be delivering. I delivered a draft video for every 10 to 15 picks of the NFL draft and did live streams. I went nuts on the NFL draft. And some of those videos did extremely well. And I only had a couple hundred subs at the time. So I love the NFL draft and love talking about it. I don't have time to prepare in terms of myself because there is so much to cover with college football, and we try to everybody. So between the transfer portal and recruiting and all the other videos that are, you almost have basically two types of college football videos during the off season: breaking news analysis. So-and-so got hired, so-and-so got fired, so-and-so transferred, so-and-so committed, that news analysis. And then we also have all the content that we'll produce that is fun to produce, but is also needed to keep a channel going because you're producing, your top 10 quarterbacks in the Big Ten, your top 10 coaches nationally, your schedule analysis, all that sort of thing. To basically say, I can't keep up with the draft, going into the draft, all the speculation. So we've got a guy, Rick Saratella from the NFL Draft Bible, that joins us on a regular basis close to draft time. So I hope to do a lot of that. So Marty is asking, hey, Mark, if Jim Harbaugh leaves, what are the chances of Luke Fickell being the new Michigan coach? Well, the chances are slim just because there are other coaches out there. So just from a probability standpoint, the percentage possibility is small for any one coach to be the next Michigan coach. But I would think that he would be a candidate. I don't know what his allegiances are to Ohio State, whether he would think, I'm never going to coach at Michigan. That would be a bit odd, but it's a free country, and he certainly has the right to pursue his career. But he's going to be on the short list for any job opening above the Cincinnati level. Jeff Webster says it is Dorsett. For some reason, I hated that and never liked him afterwards. Wow, that's pretty harsh. Didn't like the way he said his name. Yeah, you had Dorset and you had Dorsett. I think it was Dorset, and it changed to Dorsett. Tony Dorsett, man, he was awesome. Yeah, Jeff, that seems to be the logical thinking, but how many times have we been duped by a head coaching search? I think that it is rare when the expected coach gets hired at said school. We usually all miss it. We come up with our list of candidates. It turns out to be somebody else. But based on what he's done at Iowa State, Matt Campbell would seem to be the number one target for Michigan if Jim Harbaugh moved on. Gary was thinking of another player, Mike Turgovic. I don't remember him. 1977 Michigan. Beano Cook. There you go, Cow One. Beano Cook. Was he not a treasure? Yes. If I could bring some people back, I'd bring back Jimmy the Greek. I'd bring back Beano Cook. Oh, there's so many people. A ton of the guys that I named earlier, NFL announcers. And of course, Keith Jackson is, if you look up the term voice of college football, I've explained this to a few people who have challenged me on the voice of college football mantra. If you look up voice of college football on Google, you may get me, you'll get Keith Jackson. In no way would I ever in a million years put myself in the same category as Keith Jackson. But we are doing two entirely different platforms. So we can both be the voice of college football. Keith Jackson is the virtual, actual would be the actual vocal box, the voice, the sound of the game. He didn't levy his opinions. That's different. This is when I use the term voice of college football, that's about our opinions, our voice, letting our voice, our opinions be known, be heard. Keith Jackson was an actual voice, the audible voice of the games. He didn't set out his opinion. He was not a commentator. He was the voice of the games. Completely different thing. John Riggins. Man, I hated John Riggins. Sue's here. Go Bucks. Keith Urban's drummer followed me today. He also plays for Little Big Town. Why? I guess he likes my music posts. Weird, right? Oh, it's not weird. It's good. That's cool. Maybe you can strike up some conversations with Keith Urban's drummer. Riggins was a beast. He was good. He was good. Lewis throwing out John Cappelletti and Steve Owens as Heisman winners. This would be another good topic for the offseason, will be Heisman snubs or players who did not deserve the Heisman. We can start with 1956. Marine 76 pointing out that the Alabama offensive line will not be at full power. They did have 2 injuries in the playoff game. Well, Jeff, you have a better memory than I do of Beano Cook in particular. If he was on today, I would be much more prepared, much more informed and aware to evaluate his opinions. You know, when I was 10 years old, 15 years old, watching Beano Cook, he brought so much knowledge, even if much of it was, yes, Eastern football apologist. Yes, he loved Pitt, Penn State, talked about Army all the time. Yes, absolutely. He was, I don't know if he was biased in terms of who he felt to be good and not good, but his knowledge and his background was skewed. You could say that about a lot of people, though. So, but he was a wealth of knowledge. He might have stated some things that were dead wrong or awful. I don't have that type of recollection. Mike says Walter Payton gained most of his yards on bad Chicago teams. When he got there, they were bad. They quickly got decent because of him mostly. They made the playoffs in 1977, 78. They lost to the Cowboys in 77. They got pummeled. They lost to the Eagles in 78. Pretty close game. Then they were awful for a few years. Then they got good when Mike Ditka showed up and they made the NFC Championship game in '84, then they were good the rest of his career. So yeah, his better days were played with bad quarterback play and decent defensive play, but overall not contending teams. So Ray says here, this is contrary to most, but I have embraced the chaos of college football, coaches moving, transfer portal, conference realignment, but more progress we will continue to accept eventually. So I would say on one hand, I don't like it for the sport. A lot of what you just named there, I don't like for the sport, but at the same time, it's good for what I do because I have banked my entire career on covering college football. So I like it from that standpoint. It keeps the news cycle churning. Billy Sims, Sweetness the GOAT. Gary's still angry that Mike Ditka gave the ball to the Fridge, who scored the touchdown, and he blanked on, you know, should Walter Payton have received a handoff and scored a touchdown in the Super Bowl when the Bears were winning by 1,000,000 points? Yes. Is it the end of the world? No. Mike Ditka has admitted to his mistake, but at the same time, he's coaching a football game. It is funny, Mike 3883, how much they push gambling now. Before it was taboo not long ago. I started at ESPN. Oh, that's kind of strange. It was man, I started at ESPN. I did not commemorate the anniversary, but it was 20 years ago, a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, Christmas week. For the first 15 years that I was there, roughly, gambling was taboo. Did not talk about gambling. And somebody in the sports world, all of a sudden, boom, to gambling. The NFL was the same way. It was completely taboo. One of the reasons why Christopher is against the playoff is because of gambling. People gamble on other games. I don't understand the connection. Even though I talk about gambling here, or I talk about the point spreads, I wouldn't say I specifically talk about gambling. I do not talk about over-unders. I have no opinion on over-unders. And I make my predictions, which is connected to gambling to a certain extent. You could look at it that way, even though for the first 30 years that I made college football predictions and NFL predictions, gambling did not enter my mind much. But yeah, I've not wagered on a game in probably 5 years, something like that. I Malari, I apologize. I don't know what you're referring to there about what I would not be shocked by. Oh, I think it had to do with games being fixed. Yeah, that I would not be shocked. I would be surprised. I don't believe that it's happening on a large scale. Christopher, I'm not really understanding your comment here when you say there's all kinds of things that you can put a wager on, intangibles. Can't really wager on anything that's not tangible because there's not a result. Sue's here. Did anyone watch the All-American Bowl yesterday? We talked about it off the top here. I'm going to be delivering some player profiles on the various players they committed. I did watch a future Buckeye. Our future is bright. Yeah, they had about 7 players in the game. Yes, Gary. Woody Hayes snapping the first down marker over his knee. That's crazy. First college football game for Monty was the 1997 Rose Bowl. 10 years old. Michigan beats Washington State and wins the national championship. Yes, 21-16. Remember Keith saying, want to know the MVP? Have his pappy right here. Yeah, that's a great line. That is a great line. Ed is pointing out the BYU 1984 national championship game after beating Michigan, a 6-6 team in the Holiday Bowl. We're going through great Lions of all time with Gary and Lewis. Yes. Mike Herschel Walker. Well, he was a great college back. He's an all-time great. He was a good NFL back. I think that there was more. He was more polarizing in terms of his NFL talent than just about anyone I can think of. I remember Sports Illustrated running an article about the dichotomy of the paradoxical nature of the NFL perspective take on Herschel Walker. And they interviewed and polled maybe every NFL player, personnel director, general manager about Herschel Walker. And there was such a split about him being such a phenomenal talent, player, and him being overrated. Sue's best friend's birthday's tonight. Awesome. Oh, making some. Oh, there. That sounds good. Christopher is touting the Hawaii team of 1984. How good they were. Alan, good to see you. Thanks for reminding everyone to hit the thumbs up. Please smash the like button. It helps us build the channel. So support the channel by hitting the like button. You can also support us at Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just search Mark Rogers TV, or of course right here on the Super Chat. We will be back here at noon on Monday for championship coverage throughout the day. The only condition there is if I've got to break away for any breaking news, let's say Florida gets a commit, I'm not going to have any time to get to it. I may do that possibly. I don't see that happening though. I'll be here. Yes. So Eddie is hitting on what might be the story of the day, or potentially the story of the day, with Caleb and Mario Williams both visiting USC, spotted in LA. It's understood that Mario Williams will follow Caleb wherever he goes. Guess he's like a little lost puppy. But that's the deal. So the initial thought, at least my initial thought, I believe it to be pretty sensible, was that as soon as Caleb Williams announced that he was looking at other schools and in the transfer portal, well, who's the coach that recruited and signed him and could use a quarterback? Not that Jackson Dart is not going to be a good one. So Caleb Williams, USC, that was where my thought was. And then we've heard ever since then connecting him to going to other schools. But now we see him talking to USC. Hunter, yes, I will watch the NFL today. I have a lot of work to do, but I will sit on the couch and I will put on the red zone. I have been sold on the red zone. Franklin says, "Hi, Mark. Name is Frank. Why don't you talk about HBCU and Coach Deion Sanders and Jackson State recruiting?" We could. We have, to a certain extent. Basically, Deion Sanders has been able to use his fame, his personality, his charisma, his magnetism, his obvious football fame and knowledge, and the ability to sell himself as somebody that can develop these players, especially at those positions. So you're looking at a wide receiver and a defensive back who are two of the very best players in the country. We don't know that he's going to be able to do that at every position, but he's done it for the two positions that he played in the league. And it's phenomenal. It could, if it continues, if this continues, will change the structure of college football. Could take a while, would take a while. It's not going to happen overnight, but it could severely change the structure and the balance of power in college football. Yakov, appreciate the contribution so much. In my opinion, CJ Stroud will be a 2023 first round pick. The way he's going. Yes, Gary. Tony's amazing. We're glad to have him here every Wednesday. NFL primetime, meaning not NFL primetime, meaning it's just me, Tim, 79. Yes, NFL primetime with Chris Berman was my fave. Nebraska making some nice moves here in the last couple of days with the LSU wide receiver and the Texas quarterback. Gary says, props to Mark. I learned of Tony and Tom's work because of the YouTube platform. Good. Glad to hear it. Malari, Mark, who will win the MVP for the championship game? Well, I believe that much will have much to do with who wins the game. So since I've not predicted who's going to win the game, it's kind of tough to say. I think you've got all the likely candidates on both sides. So those guys aside, the obvious choices, some off the radar. I don't know if necessarily Will Anderson would be off the radar. Brock Bowers. Jeff says, Mark, what are your thoughts on the Niners making the playoffs? So we're talking NFL today. Don't have too many thoughts. I don't know how much San Francisco football I've seen this year. I know Jimmy Garoppolo did not play last week, right? Trey Nance was in the game. Franklin. Hi, Mark. My name is Franklin. Why are you not talking about? Okay. We went through that. So I did talk about it. Gary is telling us that Big Ten fans should beware of the Michigan State passing attack soon. Golden Blue Dude is here. He showed up at least for a couple minutes here, so we appreciate that. And want to remind everyone that we've got a West Virginia channel. So you can see Coos's Corner with our guy Justin Coos Walker, and also, of course, Golden Blue Dude there on our West Virginia channel. So please check it out. Just search Voice of College Football West Virginia. Ed believes that college football is going to go to 16 games. I cannot see that drastic. If you're talking about a team playing 16 games that goes all the way to the national championship game, sure. Robbie Bosco was BYU's quarterback in 1984. Absolutely. It went, I think the procession would have been Oliver Luck, Jim McMahon, Steve Young, Robbie Bosco, and then I'm forgetting who after Bosco. You know, in 85, 6, 7, 8. Sure, as soon as I see the name would come back to me. Of course, Ty Detmer. Mark Wilson. Yeah. Yes. So it would have gone Oliver Luck. Mark Wilson. Well, Mark Wilson. When did he go to the Raiders? McMahon was in the 82 NFL draft. So Franklin is all over Jackson State. Robbie Bosco. Dun, dun, dun. Gary, Michigan fans, how credible the Harbaugh to NFL rumors. We talked to Justin Rowe about that and just released a video yesterday. Check that one out. We've got a ton of Alabama and Georgia content out, so check it out from both sides. Well, the thing I'll say about Golden Blue Dude's comment about MLB lacking star appeal is that depends what you mean by stars. So when baseball was popular and everybody knew who Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter and Reggie Jackson and Johnny Bench and Steve Garvey and Pete Rose and all those guys were, then it had a ton of star power. Shoot, when I was growing up, baseball players were more famous than football players for the most part. It was very close. The popularity of the two sports was very close into the 80s, but football's taken over. So there are still players who obviously are putting up monster numbers in Major League Baseball, but they've not become national stars because the game has become totally regionalized. So baseball is still making a ton of money and still thriving and still able to shoot. I was channel surfing the other day and I stopped at the MLB network and they were talking about a Detroit Tigers pitcher who, again, if this was 10 years ago, I would have known everybody on the Detroit Tigers pitching staff. But today, I have no idea who the guy is. That he signed, it wasn't some gargantuan contract, but just to realize that some guy's making like $12 million a year and he's this pitcher with a 4.75 ERA. That there's that much money in the sport because of the local interest in each team. If you're in St. Louis, they love the Cardinals. They don't watch any other baseball. If you're in Cleveland, they love the Indians. They don't watch any other baseball. Mike's here. Mike Myrick. Good to see you here. Loves his Florida State football. Good morning to the voice of college football. Go Noles. Yeah, somebody had mentioned Jim Harbaugh and NIL. I skimmed through an article today. I can't give credit to whom the writer or platform is because I don't remember. I apologize, but it was out there that just talking about Jim Harbaugh and him staying in Michigan. And now that he's beaten Ohio State, won the Big Ten championship, got into the playoff, blowing up this restructured contract that diminished his salary 50% and going back to a top-notch coach's salary again, and Michigan being committed for him to stay, being committed to a certain amount of money to build a coaching staff, and then also NIL deals. Oh, this must be the previous quarterbacks to Ty Detmer that Chris is giving us here. Between Bosco and Detmer, you had Steve Lindsay and Sean Covey. Man, I figured that those names would ring a bell, that I would remember those guys instantly, but I don't. So they were the quarterbacks between 85 and 88, something in that range. I remember BYU, they played, of course, I could probably rip off their bowl games here. They had that famous one against Indiana and Lee Corso in the 78, 79 Holiday Bowl, 78 Holiday Bowl. 79 was the BYU just always played in the Holiday Bowl. That's all there was to it forever. Played Navy. I think they played Navy in 78, Indiana in 79. Then they had that crazy game against Eric Dickerson and Craig James in the 80 Holiday Bowl, 46-45 on a bomb to the end zone late. 81, I'm blanking on that game. 81, I think, was Washington State. 82, they got blasted by Tim Spencer and Ohio State. Mike Tomczak, Keith Byers, Gary Williams team. Marcus Merrick. 83, they beat Missouri, 21-17. 84 was the Michigan game. 85. So this is when they deviated off of the Holiday Bowl for whatever reason, whatever the contracts were and the bowl connections. They went to the Citrus Bowl in 85 and lost to Ohio State on an interception pick six. And then they had a series of games against Iowa. They had like a 39-38 game. They lost to Iowa at the end. Yeah, Ty Detmer had a horrible postseason game against Texas A&M when the year he won the Heisman. They lost to Texas A&M by 1,000,000 points. Golden Blue Dude has only been to 2 Major League Baseball games and 2 NBA games. I went to my first baseball game in 1978. So that was 45 years ago, 43 years ago, 44. So I've got to say that even though I haven't lived close for a lot of that time to Major League Baseball stadiums, I always made it a point when I went home to Ohio in the summer, I would always go to an Indians game. And many times I would go to 2. I'd have to go back. It's one of my favorite places to be in the world was at Jacobs Field. And before that, even though it was a dump, Cleveland Municipal Stadium. So, and what was phenomenal was in 2010, maybe 2009, was Ken Griffey Jr.'s last season with Seattle. His last full season with Seattle because he came back the next year. And I took my son because he loved Ken Griffey Jr. And we went to all 3 games. It was phenomenal. We went Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and my son took his little it was my camcorder, and we were in the upper deck, and I used to love to get the seats behind home plate in the upper deck, but only a couple rows back because you could see, you were just really close to the action and you could see the whole field. Love those seats. And my boy was about 13 at the time, 12 or 13. Anyway, he would run down before Griffey would come to bat. He would run down the steps, down the tunnel, and go out, and he'd go down the aisle right behind the dugout and shoot his at bat. And every time this happened, an usher would see him down there for a minute, and then an usher would go. I'd watch it from the upper deck. An usher would come get him, and every time my son was able to shoot Griffey's at bat by the time the usher got there, so he never stopped him from shooting. And he'd do it the next time. He'd slip by the usher again, or he'd go down a different aisle to the dugout. Oh yeah, good times. It's just me, Tim 79. No, my birthday is not in January. It was an important person's birthday yesterday. January 8th, an extremely important birthday yesterday. I've been to how many baseball stadiums? 2 in Cleveland, Detroit, 3 different ones in New York, 4 different ones in New York. I've been to Fenway in Boston, Yankee Stadium, the new Yankee Stadium, Citi Field, and Shea Stadium in New York. So that's 5. Three River Stadium in Pittsburgh, 6. What's the name of the new stadium? Oh my word. The Pittsburgh Stadium. I'm losing it. I'm losing all baseball knowledge, whatever the new Pittsburgh Stadium is. Been there a couple times. Been to the Phillies' new stadium. I've been to Nationals Park. Been to Tiger Stadium, 10. I've been to Coors Field, 11. I've been to Anaheim Stadium, 12. I think that's all my baseball stadiums, 12. Yeah. I've been outside Petco Park, but didn't go to a game. Wanted to go to a game, but they were out of town, or the couple times I've been in San Diego, they were either out of town or it was off season. Bushcraft, Ohio. Good morning from Ohio, Mark. Thumbs up. Guy and gals for the best show going. Go Blue. The amount of Michigan fans. This is what I would love to do, and I don't know how far back I am in the chat, but I would like some ideas on how to do this. I would love to get a handle on how many fans we have, how many viewers we have of different college football teams. Wonder how I could do that. I can't make it a poll. There's too many teams. I can't have all of you just write in to the comments section. I guess I could. I'm going to do that in the off season. I'm just going to post a video. It's going to be about 14 seconds long. And all I'm going to say is, who is your favorite college football team? Please respond to this video. Problem is, we got 33,000 subscribers, and I'll probably get 200 comments, and that's not going to answer my question. This is my guess. I'm going to guess that our largest fan base at the main channel here is Michigan. And Ohio State, 2. After that, it's kind of tough to gauge. I got to think Alabama's high. Georgia's high. Florida's high. I see a lot of Florida. Yeah, it's kind of tough after that. It seems to be pretty spread out. Miami, Florida State. That's the reason we started those channels, because I could tell that we had enough viewers, all those teams. I'm going to skip. I apologize for the questions I missed, but if you'd like to definitely get a question answered or a comment there. Droop75, I believe, is an NC State fan. But anyway, if you definitely have a question or comment that you want posted and want me to address for sure, then include a super chat. You can make it $1, so it doesn't have to. I will just be able to see it that way. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the chat. I missed somebody here. Marty. Look at that. Marty, thank you so much for doing that, because Marty gets it. So we do our best to deliver the best in discussion, debate, and analysis of college football here every day. And for those of you who have not been around during the off season, you will see once the national championship game is played, I am going to cut loose on ratings and rankings and evaluations all over the place. And if you have any requests, leave them at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. But I'm going to go nuts on all sorts of ratings and rankings and evaluations during the off season. The stuff that we love to do, schedule analysis, all of it. Okay. So if you want us to continue, and if you love what we do, even if you don't agree with me, I assume everybody here at some point doesn't agree with me, but they still value what we do. If you want to support the channel, please hit the like button and also share these videos out on social media. Here's my thought. If you enjoy the content, others will as well. So let people know, realize that there are people that you come in contact with every day, whether that be in person, over the phone, or online, definitely online, that have no idea that we're here. So again, Monty's letting everybody know, please like and subscribe, press the bell. That way you get the notifications to know when we go live. And do not hold me to this, but I would like to release, I'm going to attempt, but I've got just so many different things going on in my life right now, and will possibly, hopefully, in the off season, that it's going to be difficult for me to keep a regular live stream schedule, because I already have one that involves 8 commitments per week. So if you're not aware, because you're just locked in here at the main channel, or maybe watching us for the first time, or this is the first week you've been here, we have 25 team channels. So we've got a Miami show Tuesday at 1:15 Eastern time. We've got an Iowa show at 5:30 Eastern time every Tuesday. And on Tuesday, we've got Nebraska at 7 Eastern. On Wednesday, we've got an Oklahoma show at 12:30 Eastern. Ohio State at 1:30. Michigan at 5. Marty. Michigan at 5. Florida State at 6. Miami at 7. And then we've got a West Virginia show that we've just started on Fridays. So I've got like 8 live streams that I'm committed to each and every week. So in addition to that, we do call-in shows. So I would like to be able to set up a schedule that you guys can count on, but I don't want to release a schedule if I can't deliver on that. But see, Marty gets it, because if you love what we do here, the Voice of College Football, again, even if you don't agree with me, if you love our approach, best discussion, debate, and analysis, because of you, and also the dozens and dozens of media guests. I counted a couple of years ago, and this is probably pretty consistent year to year. I counted, we had 107 media guests on in 1 year. 107. So again, if you enjoy what we do, please take the lead from Marty there. Please like and subscribe and hit the bell for the notifications. But I'm going to go to the bottom of this list, because now I forget what I asked everyone to do or what I brought up. The one thing I brought up was I would love to get a handle on what fan bases are represented. Christopher, I appreciate that. I think you're having conversations with everybody about the 1984 college football season. So we did a series of videos called Disputed National Championships. And I'd like to continue with this off season, where I looked at various seasons and where there was a dispute for the national championship. So those are posted. You can just put them right in the, just put disputed national championship in the search bar. You should find it. I did 1983, 84, 90, 91, 96, and 2000. I'm not ready to announce exactly what it is because I want to get further in the project to the point where I'm ready to release it. But we've got a massive project we're working on here at the Voice of College Football. Hope to have that released in a few months, probably more like 4 or 5 months. Big Dog Brett's here. Please check out the live stream that we did a few days ago with the Georgia side of the Alabama matchup. It's a good listen. Check it out with Big Dog Brett. Go to his YouTube channel as well, Big Dog Brett. So, man, we've talked to a few different Georgia people, a few different Alabama people. I reached out to Uncle Lou, but I just did that late last night. So that probably, unfortunately, it just didn't cross my mind until late last night. So it already being Sunday might be a bit difficult to get him on, but I want to see if he got back to me. Because, man, Uncle Lou and Georgia are synonymous. So it would be phenomenal to have him on since they are playing in the national championship game. So I appreciate that, Chris. So I really want to get to more college football seasons and disputed national championships. My only hang up there is just the day-to-day grind of everything that is going on with transfers and recruiting and coaches changes and all of that. That it takes a little bit of time. And so if I produce one of those videos and I do some exhaustive work I have firsthand recollection of every college football season and basically what happened, but I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So I go through all the rankings preseason and throughout the season just to see what happened and the results, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. And the only issue we have is there's a limited number of you, a limited portion of you that are historians that care about 1983 or 1991. So I don't get great viewership. It's not like the Lincoln Riley video that I produced and put out there when he left Oklahoma, and it got 67,000 views. So just here in the last month, I posted my most popular video ever, Lincoln Riley, 67,000 views. And actually, a similar video got about 40-some thousand views on the Oklahoma channel. So one topic. And Prince, we appreciate that you care about history. I think it's fascinating to go through the rankings and the results and the schedules and try to determine if there should have been other teams considered for national championships. In 1983, for example, after the bowl games were played, Miami 11-1, Nebraska 11-1, Auburn 11-1, and I might be leaving somebody out, Texas 11-1. Well, based on the bowl results, you can eliminate Texas to a certain extent, but even Texas lost the Cotton Bowl by 1 point to Georgia, a top 5 team. So anyway, just to hand Miami the national championship based on beating Nebraska, who was number 1, I looked into the scheduling and I looked into the results and the dominance of each team. Sue's here. Who is the largest national fan base? I've read Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Michigan 3. Do you agree? I don't agree or disagree. I don't know. I know based on what we do here. Okay, if you just look at size of states and the popularity of college football in certain areas of the country, And then on top of that, how good and historical the brand is, and put all those factors together, it would make sense that Texas would be high on the list. It would make sense Ohio State and Michigan and Notre Dame would be high on the list. Alabama, because of their recent success, high on the list, even though there's not much population in the state. Miami, I think, is in the top 10. I would believe USC to be in the top 10. So that list, I can't argue with that. And based on, I mentioned the teams that resonate here, Ohio State, Michigan, right at the top, and then it's all over the place in the SEC from there. But Texas does well, usually on this channel. Wilbert Montgomery mention. Wow. Christopher, it might be a good idea for me to go through each one of Alabama's so-called national championships. K-Dog is telling me, Uncle Lou says you got to him late. He probably can't, but maybe he can make some time. So he must have mentioned that on his show, I guess. Because I didn't text. I didn't text him, did I? No, I emailed him. And I didn't do that until, oh my goodness. Yeah, wasn't super late, but it was late. Not late for me, but yes, late for a normal person. It was at 12:15 in the morning. One Scoop Johnny at 2017 with Bama and UCF. How about Ohio State? Hang on just a second. Not that they deserve a national championship by any stretch. No. My point with Ohio State in 2017 would be the same one that I would have with, let's say, Penn State in 2016. It's the entry into the playoff that you can dispute. So you can take this on from two angles. You can take it on that the results are the results, and we saw what we saw, and this is what was concluded. Now, is there an argument? Or we can go back to playoff or BCS championship game selection and say, was that fair? Was that correct? Should there have been other teams included? Score prediction tomorrow. You know what? All season I've released my predictions exclusively on Patreon. And so I wanted to honor those folks for their loyalty and allegiance. And so all my predictions have been on Patreon. I did release my playoff predictions here on the main channel, so I will probably do the same. Yeah, I'll do the same. I will have my prediction here on the main channel sometime soon in the next day. Christopher, I did not award Washington the national championship for 1984. To clarify, BYU was awarded the national championship by the polls. That, in my estimation, is disputed because their schedule was horrendous. They played a 6-6 team in a bowl game. Okay. Who are the other teams that should be considered? In my estimation, Florida and Washington. Florida, in my estimation, had the best team, but they did not play in a bowl game. Washington beat Oklahoma, who most likely would have won the national championship had they won that game. Washington beat Oklahoma by 11 points in the Orange Bowl. What I did on that video is I just gave the argument for each team. And then because I know from past experience that people wanted me to make a decision, I made a decision. I do not believe that anybody should be awarded the national championship for that particular season because there's no way to award it. There's no clear-cut champion. But if there had to be one selected and somebody was asking me, whatever I stated in that video is what I stand on. So here's the point, Michael. Not that 2000 is disputed. No, Oklahoma won the national championship. They were undefeated. I have no issue with Oklahoma and the national championship in 2000. They won it fair and square. They dominated Florida State in the national championship game. They played in a major conference against a legit schedule, all that. What I have issue with is who they played in the championship. So we have an issue with Washington, Miami, and Florida State all having credentials to play Oklahoma. And how do we determine who should be playing Oklahoma? Well, we should have had a playoff. I probably do need a nap. You're right about that. I got about I don't know how much. I don't exploring with Ben. No coffee. Hate it. Hate coffee. Vitamin water, no coffee. I've never drank coffee. I tell this story once in a while when somebody brings up coffee. The last time I had a cup of coffee, and I had about 10 of them, was not because I needed to stay awake, but because I needed to stay warm and I needed to keep my jaw moving, was in roughly, it was either in 1991, 2, or 3, because those are the seasons in which I was a play-by-play announcer for Ohio high school football on WNCO radio. Anybody in Central Ohio? WNCO radio. I did play-by-play high school football, and we were doing a playoff game in December, and it was freezing. It was like 6 degrees outside. And it's one thing to be at a football game. Like my son, one of his last high school football games was I think it was put on record as the coldest high school football game in the state of Connecticut ever. It was unbelievably cold, but I was just there and I couldn't sit in the stands. It was too cold. I had to walk around. I was walking around the field the whole game. Plus I was taking I was trying to take video of him, but it was too cold for the video camera. Anyway, for this particular, it's one thing to be at a game. It's another thing to have to work and talk when my jaw was frozen. So I was just downing coffee just to keep my jaw loose so I could talk. That's the last time I had coffee, 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Marty is telling us that we only have 19 likes and we've got 100 people in here. And when I get comments like that, actually, you got to consider that even though there are only 90-some people watching, we've got probably 500 people have watched and could have hit the like button. All right. What time is it? Oh, it's 1:20. The NFL's on, and I've got a 1 through 1:30 to produce. So Top 25 that actually makes sense. Many of you watch that every Sunday during the college football season. But after the national championship game, I'm releasing rankings 1 through 130. We're ranking everybody. So that's going to take some time. So I may do that during the NFL games. Roger hated coffee until he was about 30. Oh, yes, Mike. Arkansas beat number 1 Oklahoma. Yeah, Lou Holtz. That was a big upset. 31-6, I think. Yes, Robert. I'm even going to rank New Mexico State, which is going to be extremely easy. I started my list last night, just kind of like off the top of my head, looking at the standings, just write down the teams 1 through 130 to give me a starting point before I start to figure it out. And the easiest way to do it was once I got like into the mid 60s, it gets really, you're comparing 5 and 7 MAC teams against 5 and 7 Conference USA teams. So then I went from the bottom, because then the bottom's easy too. UConn, New Mexico State. You got all these 2 and 10, 1 and 11 teams. You can do about 10 or 15 of those that are just awful. Then you start filling in. But that's just the starting point. That's not, I could take the easy way out and just be like, kind of take the records and it's easy. No. It's not the way we do it here at the Voice for College Football. It's going to be accurate. It's going to make sense. But I will say, disclaimer, it is extremely difficult to rank group of 5 teams, considering the schedule, and the Power 5 teams. It's just tough. It is just tough to do. It is tough to evaluate a 12-2 Houston team that played in the American Conference against a 9-4 Arkansas team that played in the SEC against a much more difficult schedule. I tend to give the weight to Arkansas in that case. Oh, you guys are talking Notre Dame, Texas, 77 Cotton Bowl, 38-10. Earl Campbell going down. Kyle 1, thank you for that. All right, I believe David's got some Ohio State seasons that he would like to see, 1973 and 96. We addressed the 1996, David. Check out that video when you get a chance. 1996. Just put that in the search bar. 1996 disputed national championship. And yeah, check that out because it could be disputed. Ohio State, Arizona State, Florida all finished 11-1. And if you want to argue for Florida State, why does a bowl game mean more than, why does a rematch victory in a bowl game mean more than the regular season game that was played the last game of the regular season? So Florida State and Florida both went 11-1, and they split. All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here. And as Hurricane Millie is telling us, please hit the like button. It's very simple. Right here at the Voice of College Football. Maybe I'll be back later tonight. Possibly. I've got a ton to do. And you know what? Had I seen that earlier, I would have balanced out the lighting a little bit better. Man, lighting, and a set. This could be an off-season project as well. We just produce too much content, though, to be working on things like that. But, man, would I love to revamp the set here at the Voice of College Football. All right, maybe later today, but I fulfilled my obligation that said I would go live today, and it's been a great time. Thank you so much. I appreciate and I enjoy you guys bringing up all sorts of crazy stuff from the past. And, of course, we've got tons of Alabama, Georgia stuff, so check it out. And we're going to be here at noon Eastern tomorrow for our big ramp-up preview to the national championship game, Alabama, Georgia, and we'll see you then. Enjoy your day.